What if now? What if now is the time to make a decision? The one that we've been procrastinating on, the one we've been putting off, the one we've been worrying about, the one we've been fretting over, allowing indecision to play a role in our lives. What if now is the time? Have you ever heard the saying, with God, all things are possible? Yeah, sure we have. It can be very comforting, can it? It can be very empowering. I think sometimes it comes with an expectation of some supernatural things. Like God's going to come riding in on a white horse and save the day. That puts the divine outside of us. That puts a lot of doingness on the divine, doesn't it? Puts a lot of doingness on the divine. And I'm pretty sure that's not what the intention of that saying is. I think it's an important statement, and the important word in the statement, besides God, that's always an important word, of course, is with. With God, all things are possible. Not, God, go do this for me because I don't know how to do it. But with God, all things are possible. In our teaching, we teach that we treat and move our feet. We say feet. We say our prayers, and we then take inspired action, right? To make sure that we're taking the right steps to allow that manifestation in form. And it's sort of the same thing. With God, all things are possible. Treat and move your feet. Take that inspired action. It's the creative work that we do in partnership with the divine. We are completing our wonderful book of the month. There's still a few copies, I believe, in the bookstore if you haven't gotten yours yet. I recommend it as one that stays on your bookshelf. It's one of those that we could read every year, I think. It's just that good. But it's called The Power of Decision. That's been our topic all month. Raymond Charles Barker's the author. And today my talk is decisions, decisions, decisions. We make a million decisions every day, don't we? Some of them are subconscious. We're just making them. It's kind of a habit, perhaps. But what about those really big ones, those big decisions we have to make? The ones that are life-changing, transformative. You ever had one of those? Those are scary, right? Those are the ones that we go, I really don't know what to do here. I really don't know what to do here. Sometimes there's a feeling of, this is not mine to do. God's got to do this. I can't do it. Turn it over to God to do. I can't do it. I know I've felt that way. I don't know what the next steps are. I don't know what to do. I've never done this before. What on earth do I do here? But ultimately, I realize that if I don't decide and do, someone else might. And I might not like that decision. I might end up stuck where I am. I might end up wishing and regretting, resenting, right? If someone else makes that decision for me. Because remember, not making a decision is the same as deciding, right? It's a decision in and of itself. I have a picture by my bed that says, give it to God and go to sleep. I found that in a southern store when I was in Virginia, and it made me giggle, and I thought I have to have that, and I stuck it by the bed. And what it has become is a reminder, gratitude, and give it to God. Surrender. Let it go. Release my attachment to it. Open my mind as I move into sleep to receive inspiration, the dreams, whatever it might be, but just be open and receptive in these hopefully 8 hours that I'm flat on my back. But it's a time to, it's a release process for me. Give it to God and go to sleep. Rest in peace and receive the divine inspiration. Barker is very clear that we are here to present life. We are here in this present life to be the vehicles of ideas. Only by means of us do they happen. Only by means of us do they happen. We have an important relationship in the creative process. We're critical to it. We're critical to it. St. Teresa of Avila says of the Christ consciousness, she says, the Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which it looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which it walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which it blesses all the world. Yours are the hands, yours are the feet, yours are the eyes, you are its body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. We are that love in action. Ernest Holmes is the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living. He's the author of The Science of Mind that we teach from. And he says, God created each of us as a divine being with the power of discernment and choice. And this ability means we can consciously make a decision and create our own destiny. Even God doesn't tell humans how they shall think. As divine individuals, we are left alone to discover the truth about ourselves. He's reminding us that there's not a puppet master in the sky that is dictating everything that's going to happen with us. That we have been given this amazing power of choice, this amazing power of deciding for ourselves what is going to occur in our lives. And he's reminding us of that. We each get to choose how we're going to express spirit, because that's what we're doing here. As that divine spark of the infinite that we are expressing in our very individualized and unique way some expression of the divine, some expression of God. But we get to decide what that is. Isn't that cool? Yeah, it's really cool. When we can put it in that perspective instead of being so overwhelmed by decisions and the choices and things that we make, but to look at it and go, how am I going to express God in this today? How am I going to choose to express the divine? That's a pretty big order, isn't it? It's exciting. Does it make you smile? It makes me smile. So there's a very important distinction, I think, between believing that God walks around slaying the dragons in our lives, which there are some that believe that, and understanding our divine relationship. Understanding that it is the inspiration, the intuition, the desire that comes to us that are the opportunities for us to express, for us to express, for us to be the doingness. Not like all those pictures that we see in books and the paintings that we see of the guy in the sky and all that stuff, right? I mean, we've all seen those pictures, right? We can open any pictorial Bible today and still see them. Michelangelo, the hand of God to Adam, right? And life. We see this humanized depiction of the divine. So it's easy to continue to do that. But it's not a person. It's energy. It's life. It's love. It's intelligence. It is so many things beyond a human form. We listen and we watch for serendipitous things that happen in our lives. That's one of the ways that we get inspired or guided, if you will. We start to trust this. Once we step, have you noticed that the more you trust your intuition, the more intuition you start to see, and the more it expands, and the more it expands? It's kind of how it works, because we're expanding that consciousness that we've been talking about all month. And so we have this hotline to the divine. Remember the days of the red phone in the White House and the Kremlin and all that stuff? We got our own hotline to the divine. That when we get still and listen, we can begin to hear that message. We can begin to become inspired. We can hear the intuition and sense the intuition and be present to it. But watching for those serendipitous things, those God winks, if you will. I think, what's his name? Squire Rushnell calls them. He says these are signposts in our lives. That serendipitous things that happen. Oh my gosh, that was so out of the blue. I can't believe I ran into you. Right? We've all had those experiences. He says they're signposts for us to help us successfully navigate our career, our relationships, and our interests. Our interests. Because as we've said, spirit isn't acting physically in our realm. It acts intelligently through each of us. So when there's a serendipitous or coincidental thing that happens, Spirit has motivated those ideas and inspirations through those people to connect at that perfect right time in that perfect right place. So we can recognize the handprints, the fingerprints of the divine all over everything that happens in our lives when we start to look at that perspective. Very cool way to walk through life, to know that it's all Spirit expressing amongst us. I believe that we live in this unifying whole. And that's this environment that we're in, when we're individualized expressions of the divine, and that we're all connected in one giant ecosystem. And when the word ecosystem popped in my mind as I was writing this, I went to National Geographic and I looked up, what is ecosystem? And it's a perfect definition. A geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as weather and landscape, work together to form a bubble of life. Does that sound like oneness? On a ginormous scale. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, that really excited me when I read that description. And it was a God thing because it popped in my head. I never used that word ecosystem, but the word popped in and looked it up, and it's like, well, of course we live in this giant spiritual ecosystem called unity, called oneness, called wholeness. And we receive these impulses, these ideas, these inspirations, because Spirit's always giving. And sometimes we receive them that aren't really for us. We just happen to tap in and tune in and go, wow, that's really cool. I don't think it's for me, but maybe it's for Reverend Lee. I better tell him about that. He might be interested in something like that. And then he takes it and runs with it. Because sometimes we intercept, we catch. And so when we begin to understand that we live in this ecosystem and the wholeness and the oneness of it, we begin to be more connected to that unity. We begin to interact more with each other, with nature. We begin to not be so rattled by the individuality that we all express. And we begin to unify more. We begin to unify more. We recognize the oneness that we are and how we are all connected not only to each other, but to our planet, to the environment, to the animals, to the plants, to everything. Because that's really what oneness is, isn't it? It's not just our oneness, it's all oneness. It's all oneness. We've heard several comments this morning about the book and the power of the book, and I agree, it's been very powerful for me too. I've always had a deep belief and appreciation for the power of choice that we have, not only spiritually, but in America. And I've always been very honored to live here for that. But this has helped me shed more light on the power to decide and what that really means in our life. Choosing But deciding is a little more powerful process because sometimes we can give that away. And it's very important that we recognize the gift that it is to us and that we learn to use it effectively for our lives. In week 1 of our series this month, when we started out, we practiced deciding. Remember that? Practicing the principles, practice deciding. And looking at where you struggled with decisions and where decisions were easy, and seeing if there was any correlation you could find to kind of help you move through tougher decisions by the way that you were making simpler decisions, kind of cross-pollinating those, if you will. Did you play with that at all? Practice deciding? Notice how you were doing that in your life? I had a business partner once, or business associate, wasn't a partner, that always asked everybody else's opinion before they made a decision. Have you ever worked with someone like that? They ask everybody. And the first time they ask you, you think, oh, well, they respect my opinion, right? But then you find out they've asked everybody else. It's like, what's up with that? So then you begin to think they're indecisive. They say they're just information data gathering, right? And I get that. Sometimes we need more information, we need more data, but there's a fine line between information and data, so I can make a decision and I have no idea, so I'm going to ask everybody and let you make the decision for me, and I'll just go with it because it's better that way. Right? What we've been talking about all month is recognizing the divine within us that knows all, and that we have the ability to tap into that to find the answers by becoming still and listening. By becoming still and listening. If we don't make those decisions, if we're wishy-washy and all over the place and asking everybody's opinion and doing all of that, we never get to that place of that yes. Remember the importance of the yes to the universe, so that the universe then, that's energy. And the universe then says, okay, now we can align and bring in the troops. Bring in everything you need. Because when we're all over the place, the universe is like, I could send you orange, I could send you green, I could send you blue, but well, no, now you want pink. Oh, geez. So it's important that we get to that definitive, decisive yes, so that we can be supported then in our actions and activities. We need to be aware of our decision-making process as we go through the day. Are we someone that asks a lot of opinions of others, or are we more decisive in our actions and activities? Barker says that we shouldn't even look at the downside of a decision. I had a hard time with that one. I always look at the downside. Pros and cons, Ben Franklin closed, all those things that we were taught in sales. But I'm always looking at that. Well, if I go this way, this is going to happen. If I go, I'm a Libra, so, I got the scale thing going on. Which way am I going to go? And I understand the spiritual truth of this, though. How many times have we been taught that we don't share our deepest dreams and desires with anyone that won't be able to support us? Because their doubt enters doubt in our mind. So when we start looking at the downside, the negatives, the negative possibilities, we're putting doubt on that decision. If I've been in tune with the divine and I've received the inspiration or the intuition, do I have the faith to take action on that? Or am I going to go over here and put my human mind on that and put all of these doubts and downsides and possibilities, negative possibilities on it? Or am I going to stand in the light and the truth, knowing that once that I do and once that I say yes, the universe is already lined up behind me to support that decision, turn away from that which we do not want. That's a tenet of the science of mind, isn't it? So Barker's spot on with this. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm reminded of Ernest Holmes. It is said of him that one day he needed an extra $300 for something, and he was short, and literally and money-wise. But um, he just sat down and did treatment. An hour or so later, somebody walked in the front door with either a donation or a treatment, or something. Then he got his $300. And the staff said, "Ernest, why didn't you just treat for 1,000?" He said, "Why would I do that? I didn't need 1,000. If I need 1,000, I'll treat for that tomorrow." He had such faith in his power of prayer, in his belief, and in the generosity of the universe that he never doubted. He never doubted. Another great example of that is in the story of Exodus in the Bible. The Israelites escaped from Egypt. Moses led them out into the desert, got through the Red Sea, got over there and went, "Whoops, we don't have much in the way of provisions. What are we going to do?" And they began to panic a little bit, and they began to talk amongst themselves about, well, God rescued us from slavery, but now we're going to just starve to death. He's going to let us starve to death out here in the desert. Moses and Aaron went up and said, "What you doing? Why are you bad-mouthing God, talking smack?" And they said, "Well, what do you think?" And he goes, "Well, I'll talk to God." So Moses talks to God, and God says, "I'll take care of it. Just tell them they can only take as much as they need for their tent. If they've got 2 people or 5 or 10 or whatever, that's all they can take for themselves. And they will be supplied in the evening and in the mornings." Moses came back and told the people, and they went, "Okay, cool." That evening, all these quail show up. And so they feasted. They got up the next morning, and it said after the dew lifted, that all of a sudden this manna rains down from heaven. Manna was some sort of a grain. And they were able to take that and make bread and do all the things that they needed to sustain themselves. Some of them doubted a little bit. So they began to take a little extra, put it in some jars. The next morning they got up, and it said it had grown worms and it stank. It grew worms and it stank. So hoarding more than we need, not having the faith in the divine. These are both examples, one of lack of faith and one of faith. So where do we land with our faith in the information, inspiration, intuition that we receive in our decisions and our asking? Where do we land with that? Living, walking, and talking our faith is not for the faint of heart. Would you agree? Yeah, we've got to be strong spiritually to actually live in and accept the faith required to walk that talk. So let's see how we might practice some Science of Mind principles this week and live in faith and more easily make decisions in our life. If you would like to study these principles and practices and take them home with you, we have a newsletter that comes out on Monday morning called Mindful Monday. You can use the QR code and it will send you to an email to me. There's my email address. You can also sign up in the lobby and I'll add you to the list for Monday morning's emails. Number 1, is it time? Is it time? This week, spend some time in contemplation and meditation and ask what decisions you've been procrastinating on making and seek guidance. Seek guidance for the next steps. Ask. Ask. I have done this many times this week. Ask. And the answers come. The answers come. The direction comes. The feeling comes. The inspiration comes. I invite you to practice this and give your intention, your intuition, a chance to reveal ideas and inspiration through you this week. Number 2 is visit your ecosystem. Now we're going to take this down on a little smaller scale than our spiritual ecosystem. Visit your ecosystem that you live in, your home, your work, your group of friends, your spiritual center, and observe what is happening there. Observe nature, the birds and the bees and the plants and flowers and the trees, all of that stuff. Check it out as that ecosystem in which you live, and be present to this bubble of life. See if you feel the oneness of it all. See if you can tap into that. Use your journal to record your experience. And if you move beyond that oneness, expand it. Go beyond. Go beyond. I want to close our series this month with a final quote from Barker. He says, "Being the center and circumference of my experience, I accept the responsibility of all causation. Not all people are ready or willing to do this. They do not want to take a look in the mirror and face or handle what they see. When you can honestly accept your mind and emotions as the only real causes of your experiences, you have set yourself free of all the delusions of which the human mind is capable. Now you are on solid ground. Now you are ready to find out why the you that you are is not the you that you can be." This week, I invite you to join me in deciding to decide and being the you that you can be. So it is. All right. Now it is your turn. We're going to open up conversation now for any questions about decision. We've talked about a lot this month. Faith. Lauren?
I'll start with one. The first one that I've been thinking about actually for a couple of weeks, about deciding to take the workshop, and I haven't decided. I am waiting for that inspiration to come, which is reconciling time with knowing. So, of deep Vedic teaching from the yoga philosophies, Bhagavad Gita says that if we do not know the proper action, then we must not act until we do know. And once we know, we must act. So I kind of see decision as once I know, act. And it's easy. So I'm trying to reconcile time. Is if we don't know how to make ourselves know. And it kind of goes with my other question. So I'll just put them together if you want. Are you with me?
I think so. Go ahead.
Okay. About your coworker asking this and that, and your example was something that came to you and you told Reverend Lee. I do believe in that unified field of consciousness where somebody might know something, or I might hear something from someone that flips my switch, and then I know.
I agree with all of that.
So I guess the question is, how do you reconcile acting, making a decision, which to me implies stop sitting there and just make a decision and act, versus wait until you know.
So backing up one step is the time and silence when we're in the asking phase, when we are in the receiving phase and receiving that inspiration, that listening, tapping into infinite intelligence, and doing that work in the receptive environment first. So it's received before we act. And that's the same thing you were saying in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
Is that, we don't act until we know, but how do we know? We know through the divine connection that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
Through that discernment.
Yeah, so go back to the time, because you said time a few times, but we didn't get there on time.
So while I'm in that process of asking, I feel like it's in conflict to this other idea of don't sit around and wait for your life to go by. Make a decision.
Mm.
It's like, but I haven't received the right yes. So I'm waiting.
Mm-hmm. We rest and we wait sometimes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not, or
But
even the author is not saying, decide, hurry up and decide so you can
no,
be
no, no, no. It's
powerful.
not a
And
hurry up decision.
okay.
It's a connect decision. It is make sure that we're listening and not just discounting what we're hearing. I'm not willing to do that.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not willing to do that. Gosh, that's probably what I should do, but I'm not going to do that. So give me another answer. I didn't like that one.
I see. Okay. And then the other piece was asking people we trust what they think or
Mm-hmm.
what they see.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that sometimes we're so close to ourselves that we can't see something that everyone else is just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh.
I hadn't
And
thought
then,
of it that way. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a fine line between that
Okay.
indecision and asking everyone
Okay.
and being frozen and unable to make a decision and simply needing more information in order
Okay.
to make I got this inspiration about building a computer in my garage, but I don't know a lot about that, so I need to do a little research about that. What do you think about computers? You've got a
Okay.
computer background.
Okay.
Do you think that's something I could do? Yeah, so
Okay.
that does that make
Gotcha.
sense?
Yes.
There's connection
Yep.
points in there.
I have that labor thing too. So.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I got a question that's coming up. I didn't even know this was the book of the month and all of that. But as you were talking, I was like, well, what if you've made decisions in the past and you're like, oh my God, I was so off. I thought I was listening to my intuition. Was my intuition off, or how did this go haywire? So what do you do with that?
Well, does it go haywire or is it a stepping stone to the path of something more? That's one. Two, we can always decide again. Principle's not bound by precedent. So we make a new choice. We turn our attention on what we want, not what is occurred and what is there, and we simply begin to focus on what it is that we choose now, and we choose again.
And what do you do with you got a doubting Thomas in there now saying, yeah, but the last time you did that, it didn't turn out so well, and that doubt starts eating away at the decision making.
Yeah. So we have to control our thoughts, or our thoughts will control us. And the doubting Thomas is the negative side, right? That's looking at the downside risk. And so we're being encouraged by Barker not to do that. And by Science of Mind, to only focus on what it is we want to experience in our lives, not what we don't want to experience. And most of us want to focus on what I don't want any more of that. Get those lava beans out of my life. Right. Rather than just going, I'm going to have some ice cream.
And not looking at it like that was a big failure.
Totally.
Like it turned out. I like the universe is always conspiring for my benefit, and that even that maybe I'm judging it that it wasn't beneficial, but maybe it was. And I just can't see the full picture yet, but give it.
So claim that. Claim that this is good. Even though I can't see it today, I know this is good. I know it's for my good, and I'm going to accept it as such. Yeah. And choose that instead.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Okay. Thank you. Good question. Damita.
So I'm not really done reading the book, but I just have a question about how to feel good about your decisions that you make if it affects other people. Because sometimes what I find is that when you make a decision about your own life, that it kind of can have a snowball effect into the relationships around you, and people won't always like it. They just won't. Especially like being an exceptional parent, my special needs children, I make decisions for them and their caregivers, and sometimes they just don't like it. They're like, we don't want to do that, or we don't support that, or, just relationships in general at work. You make a decision. I'm taking time off for a certain period of time, and maybe your employer's like, I don't like it. So how can you feel good about your decisions when you know that other people may not support those decisions?
Okay, good question. So if you're making those decisions after prayerful consideration and your meditations and so forth, and you're confident that the still small voice that you're hearing is the voice of the divine, then know that those decisions are blessed. And consider how those decisions are being presented, perhaps, as opposed to, see an example. I'm taking time off because I'm so overworked and you're driving me crazy at work, so I'm leaving now for 3 weeks.
Sounds like my job.
You know what? I've been really contemplating this, and my own self-care is calling me to take some time away. And I've looked at the schedule, and it looks like this time period we're not going to be that busy, and I really am going to need to take this time off. Okay. So there's a way that we couch things and say things in our life that can help, but we have to be clear on that decision to begin with and why we're making it. I know you, and I know the decisions you make for your children are the highest and best for those children. They may not be the most convenient for a caregiver, or something else in the program is not what they're used to, but I know you're making the best decision for your children because that's who you are. All right, one more. Valerie.
This was exceptional service today, Jill. Thank you.
Thank you.
You touched on something so quick I didn't quite get it. The difference between making a choice or deciding something. What's the difference?
Choice to me is selecting amongst, I like that chair better than that chair. I'm choosing amongst things. I'm choosing amongst opposites. Deciding is something for me that is more inspiration, intelligence, intuition, that sort of thing, where it's more of a of an action of claiming something new. Whereas a choice to me feels like it's choosing between things that are already in existence. A decision is something new.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was good.
All right, you guys rock. Cool. Thank you. Good stuff. Why don't we anchor this in some prayer this morning? What do you think? All right. So going within to that wonderful, wonderful open place of our hearts, recognizing that's the place that God lives, moves, and has its being in, through, and as us. Recognizing that God is all that there is. It is that which is the ecosystem in which we live. It is the power and the presence of the universe. It is life and love and intelligence and wisdom and harmony and joy and peace. It is perfect order and right action. And all of that is here now, present in, through, and as me, as an expression of it. I am that which it is that which I am. And I know that truth to be the truth of each one of us gathered here today and online and listening later. Knowing that we are all united in this one, in this wholeness, in this ecosystem of God. That we are interdependent and independent. And so knowing this relationship that we have, I speak my word for and about each of us now, knowing, claiming, and accepting the ease and grace with which we make decisions, the power and presence with which we are guided and guarded through each and every one of those decisions, knowing that there is a light within us that shines brightly as we ask. The answers are revealed. The next step on the path is illuminated. And we move with ease and grace as we are supported by a loving universe. And I'm grateful for this knowing that this is how the law works, this is how our ecosystem works, this is how the Spirit works, in, through, and as each one of us. And that we are expressing it in the world to each other, helping each other, and being helped. I know in this moment, for anyone that has anything on their heart that they are deciding or choosing or that they're seeking prayer around, as they lift that into the consciousness of this prayer, we as a community lift that up into the light, shining the light of Spirit on it, knowing that all is illumined, knowing that the decision is made easy, knowing that the choices are divinely guided, decisions inspired, and all is in collaboration for the full and perfect manifestation. It is with a grateful heart filled with joy and thanksgiving that I release this prayer into the action and activity of law, knowing that it is done. And we affirm this truth together by saying, and so it is.